Hey, party people, and welcome to this episode of But Are You Weird? A podcast dedicated to spending time talking with some creative, captivating, and downright cool people, diving into their world and ultimately asking, but are you weird? I'm Amanda, your host and resident weirdo, and I'm so happy that you're here to join us today. And our guest is none other than the Chris Hackala. Yay, Chris! Super exciting to have Chris on the show because, Chris, let me talk about him like he's not here with me for a second. But Chris, you're our first male representative on the But Are You Weird podcast.
Kind of honored by that. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll go down in history on Wikipedia one day.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You've been on the short list of folks I've been so excited to have on the show. And we've been sort of detoured a few times, but it is finally happening. Chris Hackala is here. So, Chris, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. I'm really happy to be here, and as I said, I'm honored actually to be the first male on this. I am Chris Hackala. I am an educator, and I've been an educator my entire career. I work with both faculty and with students to try to help them navigate the challenges of learning in our current world and with really deeper understanding of what it means to be a learner. And I am someone who has been doing this for over 30 years and yet still wake up every morning with a renewed, deep appreciation for the work I get to do and the people I get to come in contact with and the interesting and amazing folks that I've met along the way. So I'm really happy to be here and to have a conversation with Amanda and to actually answer the question, but are you weird? Because I think I will have an interesting answer for that as well.
Ooh, all right. Thanks for the cliffhanger already. You mentioned an educator. You are in an interesting position, or I think it's a really interesting position where you work. And so, yes, definitely the educator side of things in terms of teaching in a classroom, but you also do some other stuff on campus. Can you tell us what you do on campus?
Sure. I am the director for what's typically a Center for Teaching and Learning. So I provide support for faculty to help them understand how to create really effective learning environments for students. I have a PhD in cognitive psychology. So my experiences really are grounded in helping people understand the way that people learn, the differences with the way people approach learning and the way that people are capable of learning, and to try to be aware and nuanced in the way that they are sharing knowledge with folks so that people have the best possible opportunity to be successful. It's super fun. Faculty are always an interesting group to work with. And I still get to teach. I still get to meet students. I actually, my wife and I talk about it a lot. I've been teaching since 1992. I've never missed a semester of being in the classroom. And I continue to value and revel these conversations. In fact, Amanda, this is something it's just interesting. I just got off the phone before this with a student of mine who graduated from another institution that I worked at in 2004. She's currently the vice president of student affairs at her institution. And I've maintained great contact with her over the years. And I continue to find such joy in the people I meet along the way.
Yeah, you know a lot of people, Chris.
I do.
And seems like, I mean, even just thinking about that student you said that graduated, gosh, like 22 years ago.
I know.
I'm just thinking, like, when we think about, I think about lifers, it comes up quite a bit on the podcast, like maintaining those really strong relationships with folks. But you are really connected with a lot of people, and you've sustained those relationships long after, even thinking about students in your classroom, long after they've left the classroom.
I really do. I mean, social media, for all of the negative things about social media, it does allow me to stay in contact with a lot of former students. And I've taught, I say this number and people often are sort of surprised, but I've taught about 18,000 students in my life. And I value these students tremendously. And if a student wants to stay in contact, I am happy to do that. I've made friends with former students that have become parts of my life. And I've also worked pretty extensively with that network to help other people make connections and build bridges between upcoming rising students and former students. And it's been a really pleasurable thing. One of the things that I think is an interesting thing about this question you have about, but are you weird, is that I just find value in people. And sometimes it looks utilitarian because I'll call a former student and say, "Hey, I have a student who wants to do this work. Would you talk to them?" But it's also an opportunity for me to talk to that former student and find out how they're doing, what they're doing, how successful they are, because I'm just genuinely curious about other people. I'm genuinely curious about how people's lives are unfolding and the things they're doing. It's part of what feeds my soul.
Yeah, that when I've been reflecting back on how people answer that weird question, there's usually a relational component and something about like the ability to connect with others. But thinking back to how you said staying connected with former students or just individuals and being genuinely and generally curious, I think about myself as a student in undergrad. And sort
Mm-hmm.
of now I'm thinking about, weird stuff too. But it was sort of like your professor was this, not necessarily an authoritative figure, but the hierarchy that's there. And so having a meaningful relationship with a professor was sort of like, ooh, what's that all about? And then, of course, there's like the way other side of the spectrum that's like, oh, is that like a weird taboo sort of thing? And so when I hear you say that you've maintained relationships, and I think about myself as an educator, like, yeah, I want to stay connected with my students. What has that been like in the years that you've taught? Have you received, like, I don't know, have people given you, I'm just going to put it really candidly, have people given you crap for that?
People are surprised by it, and I'll take a step back. The model that I sort of have always followed is that there are two faculty members that I had as a student in the 80s that I still talk to on a fairly regular basis because of the impact they had on my career and on my development as a human. And so I've always had deep respect for these two people and always thought that they were just wonderful humans. And I think that a lot of students over the years I've recognized, and you teach I teach psychology, and so I have a lot of students who have multiple classes with me, so I get to know them in different contexts, and they see me as not just their instructor and as their authority figure in the classroom, but as a human. I'm pretty open in the classroom about things with regard to like my family or with regard to my life outside of the institution, with regard to like stories I tell to help illustrate points. I don't self-disclose really personal things, but I use stories and illustrations of things, and that opens up an avenue of communication with students that allow you to be vulnerable as a human to them, and they really value that. I have had colleagues who think it's odd that I am so comfortable with my students. It's a price I'm willing to pay because of the relationships I've had. I mean, listen, I have one former student in particular who I gave a speech at his wedding.
Oh,
My
nice.
my wife and I were his daughter's like potential guardians if something happens. We see this person all the time. He's a delightful human being. I believe that grew out of the fact that we saw each other multiple times, and as he's grown into this wonderful adult, we have discovered commonalities. And he's very different than me. He's a much more less quirky person than me, much more mainstream, but he values the quirkiness in me. And I think, Amanda, when you talk about some of these things, I think relationships that I've had that have evolved over time really are the result of the fact that I am willing to, well, not willing. I don't care very much for shallow conversation. I much more care to understand people. And so I'm willing to talk about things at a little bit of a deeper level with people. And again, not crossing any really like inappropriate boundaries, but I want to know where my students are from, and I want to know about their educational experience, and I want to know about what they like to do so I can understand who they are as humans. And I think that asking that question means in a fair way, I should be willing to say that as well. So my students know, for example, that as a baseball fan, I'm ridiculously excited that spring training is happening, and all of the main players report tomorrow. Pitchers and catchers are already there.
Yep.
My students know this about me. and it's quirky and they think it's a little bit odd, but they embrace that with me. And I'm not sure why. I feel pretty lucky. Students have given me a lot of grace in class to be me. Which has been really interesting. And my teaching style has been a lot of part of that. And if you want more information, I can tell you a lot about that because my teaching style is a little different than a lot of other people.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, I was a student of yours at orientation. And so sort of dialing it back, thinking about why you were invited on the show really stems a lot from that first initial interaction with you where I was like, man, this guy is so cool. You were very excited, very passionate, very energetic. And, I'm a new full-time faculty member who's like, oh gosh, when are they going to figure out that I don't actually belong here? So nervous in this room. And to see your energy and the way that you taught, I was like, this is so cool because this honestly reminds me a bit of me. Like this is the person I want to be as an educator. And so to see you in that sort of position of power, realistically, in that space was like, wow, if this institution honors and celebrates this person, then I'm actually meant to be here. And you knew my name that first day. And I remember I reached out, I don't know, not long after, and you still knew who I was. And I was like, wow, he remembers me. That authenticity in the classroom. And you were saying about being curious and using your stories to help create the connection. That realness, I really appreciated. And I still appreciate. And it's one of the greatest things about you is just how genuine of a person you are. And it's really funny because yesterday I was talking to someone. I was like, oh, yeah, I've got to record the podcast tomorrow. And they're like, you should get Chris Hackala on the show. And I was like, he's on the show tomorrow. But just the idea of people think you are also very wonderful and creative. And they're also onto you because they know you're a little bit weird.
Yeah. And it's funny. I was talking to my wife this morning about this, and there's a lot of quirky stuff to talk about, not just work wise, but every morning my wife and I spend at least an hour talking in our room. She's in bed still. I'm in a rocking chair. We have a coffee and tea station in the bedroom. We have coffee and tea, and we unpack our day. And one of the conversation topics that often comes up is that I have a lot of friends, a lot of people I know in this world, but I also always feel like I'm a little bit on the outside of certain things because I am quirky. And so we go back and forth and try to dissect it. And it's always interesting because you said really wonderful things about me and I really appreciate it. I also have this huge imposter syndrome that is always there, that I'm not good enough. I mean, you were at a conference talk I gave a couple of weeks ago, and I was scared to death to do it. And I beat myself up the whole way to my next destination, thinking I missed an opportunity to do this, and I missed an opportunity to do that. And all of that is due to the fact that, like you said, when you came into the new faculty orientation, I often think of, do these people know it's just me? And so that kind of thing, I've worked really hard over the years to not let it be what I lead with, but it's always there.
Oh, yeah. Even yesterday, I was just having a conversation with the students because I'm me in the classroom. So the person I am on this podcast is the same educator they're getting in front of them in the classroom space. And I was just like, I asked them, is this okay? Do you like this? And they're like, no, we love it. But I'm like, are you just saying that? But I feel like in some ways it is definitely very different than what I had as a student. And yeah, that it's. I would love to sometime really pick that apart.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's one of those sort of mysteries, and it's so. One of my favorite quotes of all time in a movie is from John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where he just says, "You know what? You can say what you want, but I like me." And it took me a long time, Amanda, to get to that point where I can say that. And there are times where I have trouble saying that, but to me, what that encapsulates is recognizing that the way you see the world might not be the way other people see the world, but it's not a better or worse. It's just different. And to recognize and accept that is one of the biggest challenges for people who are whatever you want to call them, quirky, neurodivergent, whatever term you want to use. You have to recognize that your way of seeing the world might be different, but it's equally valid and interesting and engaging and should be embraced. And so I go into some of these contexts, some of these things, feeling a little bit decentered, but I remind myself, you know what, this is just who I am. And if I try to be someone else, it's going to become inauthentic. And I don't ever want to live that way. I like to be who I am. So what you said about being in the classroom, my students always say, what do you like at home? I say, well, pretty much like this. This is kind of it.
Yeah.
I'm just Chris, man. There's not much else here. I talk about different things, but this is who I am. It's an interesting phenomenon. And I'd love to figure it out because I do think there's a lot of weirdness about the way the world sometimes perceives people. And I know that there are some spaces where my sort of meanness is not always appreciated. And as a friend of mine, a person I don't know very well, but I'm going to call him a friend because of what he said to me. He said, listen, you may be too much for some people, but those just aren't your people. And that's cool. Move on. And I really try to embrace that too, because the value added, I believe that people bring to the table is always, for me anyway, and for you and for other, it's more than we detract. So
it's definitely a battle. And thinking too about something sort of going along with like who you are in the classroom and who you are at home. That's another thing I think I really like about you is that consistency. Like you're predictable, not in like a boring way, but predictable in like I know that Chris is going to meet me with enthusiasm and he will be authentic, and like that's really comforting to have that consistency. And so I'm sure your students, especially thinking about how stressed they are day to day and anxious about whatever, like knowing that when they come into the classroom that they will have the same Chris that they've always had in front of them, and how that allows them to probably relax and have the ability to learn, which I'm sure you know all about.
Oh yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I'll tell you a story. This is about 20 years ago now. I was just who I was, although I was younger, so I was a little bit less sort of okay with who I was. And I was going through a pretty personal situation where my marriage was ending. And I went into class, and after class, two students came up to me and said, "Are you okay? That wasn't Chris." And they recognized pretty quickly that there was something off about me, that I needed to sort of just take a step and think about how I was doing what I was doing and where I was. And I realized that I was a little decentered at that time, and I needed to sort of figure out a way to regulate myself, not because I didn't want my students to know about my personal life, because I'm pretty open about things. I wouldn't have announced my divorce in class, obviously, but I was trying to not let that impact who I was. And the fact that two students noticed right away, it helps me sort of see that I do show up kind of the same way every day. And when I was a little bit off, they saw it.
And they cared enough to ask too,
Yeah.
which says a lot about the respect that they have for you as well.
Yeah, I can't tell you enough. And I apologize if I get even a little teary-eyed talking about this, but students have been incredibly generous with me over the years in terms of saying kind things to me. I get cards and emails and gifts and things, and it always brings such joy, because I know the value that the faculty members I mentioned before brought to change my life. And I hope I help students find some direction somewhere along the way so that they can figure out what to do with their lives. And when students recognize that, it's one of the most meaningful things I could ever possibly have. Faculty too, when faculty come up and say nice things to me, that I've helped them or something, it's incredible. And the thing is, people think, oh yeah. It never gets old. Never. A student tells me they've had a great class. I am so happy because it makes me feel like, okay, I'm helping them. And yeah, so.
Very, I was going to say selfless, but I don't think that's the right word. I don't know what the word is.
No, because I get something out of it. I do.
But you're not motivated by what you get out of it. It's just like this really nice bonus that you get, which feels great.
Yeah, it does. Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
You had alluded to your teaching style being maybe a little bit different. Quirky, weird, question mark?
Yes, all of that. So from a very procedural standpoint, I don't do most of what traditional faculty do. I don't use PowerPoint slides in my classes. I can, I just don't. I am more of a storyteller. I use a technique called interleaving, where almost every class I will bring back something from not the previous class, but from multiple classes ago, and weave it in so the students see the content more than once. And I am never still. I carry a large green square plexiglass yardstick with me to manage my fidgetiness in class. And I have very little problem with non sequiturs that I will announce, do, and then go back to the content. So what you get, it's like listening to an album in the 70s. There's a theme that runs through everything, and you ride the waves of the positives and then the things that are a little bit more difficult through the class. And I end every class the day before finals with a 20 to 30 minute straight talk through everything we've discussed in the class for the semester,
Wow.
so that the students see how everything is actually designed to fit together. So I see each class not just as a particular one-off thing, but as a thematic thing that covers the semester. And I do that in a way that I think helps the students recognize the lack of discreteness of content that they previously thought was discrete. And I also talk about why I do those things in class. So my class is sort of it's like a Mobius strip of class where they're getting what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and then they get something that I'm asking them to help me see through why I'm doing it. And it's an ongoing conversation. The green stick has gotten a lot of attention too, because my fidgetiness, they know I need something. During the days of Zoom, when we were in the pandemic, I would teach all of my classes on my skateboard and roll back and forth so I could be moving. Moving is a big thing for me. Even as we speak right now, I am on my treadmill in my office with it on very low, so there's no noise.
Oh,
But
you've
I
got
need
a
to be.
treadmill?
I have a treadmill under my desk.
When did you get that?
Oh, I've had it for a couple of years.
Oh, because I'm so funny. I'm looking at my notes. I was like, okay, let's ask Chris about the skateboard. And here
Yeah, the
you are
skateboard's
already talking about it. But you have a treadmill. I have one too, I love it. It's great.
Yes, yes. And there are times I put the skateboard on the treadmill and put the treadmill on. It's a great core workout.
Are you
Um,
tethered to anything for safety's sake?
no, the
Okay.
wall's pretty close behind me, so I can't go too far.
Gosh,
But
that's great. That is great.
I'm an incredibly fidgety person, and the whole notion of the neurodivergent. I have no formal diagnosis, but I am 100% convinced, had they done diagnoses when I was in school in the 70s, I would have been flagged as someone with some sort of hyperactivity disorder. To this day, I don't sit still well at all. I alluded to this story, and I'll just tell you now. In fourth grade, I had an epiphany when a teacher, Miss Jacobson, who, by the way, got married at the end of the year, and I was devastated because I hoped she would wait for me, and she did not. Miss Jacobson said to me, first off, she put my desk next to hers, and I thought it was just because she liked me.
Yeah.
But she told me every hour on the hour, get up and walk 2 laps around the class. Don't disturb anybody. Just do 2 quick laps around the class, sit down again, and continue with your work. And it was a game changer for me. An absolute game changer for me, just to be able to do something that got me out of the standard routine of sitting there.
Yeah.
And that played into all the things I do now. If you ever see me at an event or when I'm at a conference, I am the guy standing in the back of the room. And it's not because I am trying to be rude. I just need to not be sitting for too long. And so it's incredibly helpful for me to be able to do these kinds of things to support the challenges that I have when I try to sit still. I mean, airplanes, if I don't have an aisle seat, I am in trouble.
Well, you have good self-awareness now.
I have incredibly good self-awareness at 57. I didn't have it at 24.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking that teacher was well ahead of her time, first of all.
Well ahead of her.
And then I think about, that movement works for you. And it's not that you're not capable in other settings. It's just that you perform better when you have the opportunity to move. But there's so many people who haven't figured out what that thing is yet for them, and take so much of that pressure and put it on themselves of like, something is wrong with me. And it's like, no, you are actually perfect the way you are. You just need XYZ in your environment to help you be your best self.
So 100%. And one of the things that I tell people all the time is that there are compensatory strategies for many of these things that are challenges for us. It's a matter of being self-aware enough to identify the compensatory strategies that work for you. And that takes a little bit of time and a little bit of metacognitive awareness. And I have the traditional fidget toys. I have a number of fidget toys in my office, which help me with my hands, which get fidgety. And whenever my wife and I will sit and watch a movie or something, I have a fidget toy in my hands the whole time. But that awareness is that I want to do that in a way that doesn't make me feel out of place from other people, but allows me to compensate for me, so that I'm looking at the social view of me as well as what my needs are. And I'll often tilt towards, having my needs met a little bit more than the social need, but I'm aware of that. When I stand at the back of a conference, I often try to sort of blend in so it doesn't look too obvious because I don't want people to think, why is that guy standing?
Right.
That's odd. But at the same time, I also know this is really important for me. And so, but being aware is important. And I worry for young people now because I think that they own some of these things, but they don't own some of the other things in ways that allow them to sort of be able to self-advocate as well as they could. Because some of the things you need is not a huge self-advocate. Like, I need to stand. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I need a fidget toy. Okay. Like, my students will do this in class and they'll ask me, is it okay if I have this, those soft cubes people
Oh, yeah.
squeeze?
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
like, sure.
Absolutely. Right.
Sure. If that's going to keep you so you feel regulated and cool, I'm great with that. I don't have any problem with that. And we're in a better time now. We're in a better time. When I was in college, this was much more difficult for me because college was much more traditional back then. So it's just a matter of being aware and recognizing and doing the things that make the most sense and being aware of how you understand it.
It's just how you're neurologically hardwired. Thinking about like it's not better or worse, it's just different. You have different ways of getting your needs met. Great. Yeah. If you need to use that, whatever fidget tool that you have, go right ahead. If you need to get up and walk around or stand, whatever works. I support it.
Yeah, this is I'm really enjoying this conversation, Amanda, because one of the things that it's making me think about is that it's easy for us as humans to do social comparison. That social comparison is challenging because there's always going to be someone we don't measure up to, right? And so how do you separate out social comparison from getting your needs met without sacrificing something? Well, it's what you said and what we've talked about is that your needs make you not better or worse. You just have a different way of handling things. That kind of recognition takes time and acceptance to get to. And it's one of the reasons why I think a lot of our students struggle because they don't know how to thread that needle yet. They just don't have the skills. And what's been interesting is my wife and I talk about this a lot because she's in the public schools, is the neurodivergent acceptance movement that has happened has allowed for more of that, which I think is helpful for the students. But it's also because we have a better understanding of what this means. And it's like when autism was an increased diagnosis several years back. People are like, well, we have more autism. I said, no, we just have a better understanding of what autism is, and we're better able to identify the signs of autism. It's not. There's been no huge seismic shift in the behavior. We're better at understanding.
Yep.
What to do, how to help people, how to help people help themselves and regulate. I think it's the same thing with some of these other things. So quirkiness has become more accepted. It's just it's challenging. I mean, I have
this is what I think. There's this reclaiming of what it means to be weird, and
Mhm.
going back to like the prevalence of autism is, yes, it's actually just a matter of having better diagnostic tools or better ability to screen or to discern for it. So it's not that there's actually an increase. It's just that we have better tools, and so more people hopefully are feeling more comfortable being
Mhm.
themselves and growing up. And I'm sure for you, thinking about the experiences that you've shared, so much of who you are has had to be filtered. So thinking about those professional spaces, like, on campus, everyone loves Chris for Chris and who they are. And I'm sure there's probably still pockets where you're like, I'm not sure if I should be this way.
Mhm.
But around new people, you're not sure what their perceptions are of that weird.
I couldn't agree with you more. And this is the thing I mentioned going to the occupational therapy conference. I don't know many of those people. I didn't know how I would be received giving the kind of presentation that I gave, which was a pretty informal presentation, especially after watching
Yeah.
some of the other presentations, thinking, whew, you're getting something very different with me.
Let me tell you, Chris, I was so excited for your presentation because I was actually a little bit nervous. I was nervous that you wouldn't be true to yourself, but like
Oh,
really in
really?
hindsight, come on now. So then
Yeah.
for me to see you and like everyone laughing and like clapping and taking out their phones, taking pictures of different things, I was like, man, this has got to feel so good for Chris. But then I was also thinking like, what a win for neurodivergence right now. And like nobody knows in that space any of your, self-diagnosis or sort of thinking, I'm a little little bit weird. But for me, it was just like, this is so cool that everyone in this room is celebrating Chris and he is being real. And I know that real is neurodivergent. And that's so neat.
Well, I appreciate all of that. And I think that's how I felt as I was going through that. It was this incredibly rewarding experience that people were aligning with and understanding and recognizing what I was talking about, but also the way I did it. Because in many ways, the delivery and the approach is also part of the message. And I don't think people always get it, but it's a demystification of complex thoughts. And I think that if I have any really good skills, it's helping people take things that are complicated and could be dressed up in academic verbiage, but makes it just accessible to people so that they can think about it and understand it for what makes sense to them. And that group it was an incredibly gracious group, and people were so kind, and it was really lovely. But what you said before about in the academic spaces, I think I still worry when I go into an academic space that has a reputation. So like a big place that is like a Harvard and I've given talks on these campuses. Like I still feel like they're going to not appreciate the work that I do and the skills I have. And so it's always rewarding because it's I think in some ways because of my approach and the way I do things, it's just people will resonate with it because the people know it's genuine. I think they think I'm putting on an act. And that's super affirming, but still there's that nervousness and I keep going back to this question because I'm fascinated by this question about being weird. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I've gone to hundreds of professional talks. The ones I give are different, and that's okay. People know what they're getting when they sign up for it, and I think that that's going to be one of those things that's going to fulfill me for the rest of my career, that I'm able to do these kinds of things and have these kinds of conversations with people. I mean, I come in and talk to your students. I don't know your students, but by the time I'm done, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with them.
Yeah.
And that's a 45-minute class because I'm able to connect with them. And it'll come down to, and it's interesting to me, human connection is always going to be, in my mind, the key to education.
Yes.
Key
to life, I would say.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Key to life. If you can't connect with people, I don't know. I mean,
yeah, that real connection though, not that small talk stuff. Like we're I don't know, we're like so fortunate to meet different people at different times in our lives. Like, why not just get to know them? Why do the superficial stuff? And at the same time, I'm also thinking like, I would never want to talk to anyone for an entire flight.
I know, and I would be smart enough not to do it. One of my favorite stories. My wife and I were in Boston on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know, this is about 15 years ago. And we were sitting at a table having lunch at Faneuil Hall. And this group of young people were sitting next to us in green shirts. And they looked over and said hi. And we said hi. You know, we're in our 40s at that point. These were 20-year-old kids. And we said, what are you guys doing? They said, we're going on a pub crawl. We're like, oh, wow. That's kind of fun for you guys to do. And they said, why don't you guys come with us? And so we ended up following these kids around. Now, my wife and I are big drinkers, right? So I had like 3 or 4 Diet Cokes. My wife might have had a glass of wine. But it was fascinating because we walked around with this group of about 8 or 9 22-year-olds, got to know them. We're still friends with these people on Facebook. We got an invite to parties for these people just because we took the time to get to know these people as humans, not as college students going out drinking. And they weren't drinking heavily. They had not been to Boston much. They wanted to see the city. We just had a lovely time with these people we met while we sat down to have lunch. Those kinds of opportunities and experiences open up your world. That many people think is quirky and weird.
I was just about to say that. Many people would think that's weird. There's a lot of really cool people out there. And what a great opportunity that we get to, I don't know, meet some of them just in passing. They really just invited you?
Yeah, they just invited us. I ended up buying chicken. I ended up buying McDonald's around 11 o'clock. They were super happy.
Oh, my gosh.
They were just kind to us. One of them had graduated college recently. The other 2 were seniors, and they were thrilled that I was a college faculty member. They were excited. One person wanted to go into education, so they're talking to my wife.
You remember everything about them, too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, my brain is actually trying to wrap my head around like what nonverbals, because it's not like, I mean, you meet someone in such a short period of time, literally probably an already busy place, right? It's going to be loud. You're somehow connecting. There's only so much that can get communicated through words. So I wonder what I'm trying to also think of you, like, what is it about you that also just says comfortable?
It's interesting you say that, and I really appreciate that, Amanda, because that's one of the things the people I work with they sort of tease me about, but they say they can, because their office is next to mine. They say they see people going to my office and they leave an hour later, and they say, "What did they talk to you about?" I said, "Well, we talked about a lot of things." They said, "Why do people tell you everything?" But people tell me things, a lot of things, on
Yeah.
planes, on trains.
Automobiles. Going back to John Candy.
I mean, people just talk to me. They feel comfortable telling me things, and
What do
there
you
is
think it
something.
is? What
I
is
don't
it?
know. I don't know. I would love to figure it out, because there's something about me that screams, "Tell me stuff." It's always funny to me when I have faculty say students won't talk in class. There's classes where I'm like, I just need the students to stop talking for a few minutes so I can talk, and that's in a lot of ways such a joy for me to see and for them to be able to engage in. And it's funny because my family and I we did a once in a lifetime trip to Europe last summer, because I had some big milestones in my family. And my wife said, "Yeah, it works in Europe too," because we ended up meeting this group in Mykonos that ended up like following us to dinner that night, and we ended up hanging out with this other couple and their kids at dinner. We sat on a bus next to each other, and next thing I know, they're like, "Hey," and we still talk to these people on like social media. It's this weird kind of like connection. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, there are definitely just some people that are much easier to connect with. And so, Chris, you've got that working for you.
I do. I'm not sure what it is, but I'll take it.
So you're a magical, wonderful person, great to connect with, very authentic, genuine, curious. But are you weird?
I 100% have always thought I was. I hadn't used the word weird. I often use the word odd, but I've always thought that about myself. And it's not just because I am quirky. It's that I I have always felt like everything that I've done and all of the experiences I've had um, have been just because of luck. And I don't feel like I've done enough to deserve the things that I get in my life. I think that's a little quirky. I'll say one other thing about being weird, and this might be a Gen X thing, but I feel very strongly that my needs are always after other people's needs. And that's been a challenge for me over the years, but it's a thing that matters to me. So yeah, I do think I'm a little weird. I'm both neuroquirky and socially quirky, but I also, as we've said, I just care deeply about people, and it's a trade-off I'm willing to take every day.
I really like neuroquirky.
I'm going to give credit to a friend of mine. Her name is Rory McElwee. She is at a school in New Jersey. Then she's a dear friend, and she used that term years ago about one of her children to describe her child. And it was, in my mind, it captured exactly what her child was like. I adore her child, but her child was a little quirky, and it worked for her child.
Yeah.
And I've used that term for a long time because I think it's apropos for a lot of people. It's
Yeah, quirky gives like a little bit of playfulness, and I like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I want to go back to what you just said about being weird, though,
Mhm.
because it made me, as you were talking, of course, my brain was going like 1,000 miles per hour. And I was just thinking, do you think you are weird? So, like, in your heart of hearts, deep down, if we take away what other people think about you, do you think you're weird?
100% yes.
Okay. And do you think other people think you're weird?
I do. I do.
So now going back to the like in your heart of heart side, why
Mhm.
do you think you're weird?
Um, there's a lot of things that people do, perceive, engage in that I sometimes miss.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and like signs from people that I miss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's a lot of things that I see that other people don't see. So it's as if I'm looking at the same thing
Yeah.
from a different angle
Yeah.
and see different things.
Yeah. So kind of, bringing things full circle. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've learned to embrace it. I mean, I actually really like how I just said it. So I want to just go back to that for a moment. People see social interactions in a particular way. I don't see them that way. I see different things, and my way allows me to do things that other people don't do. I have people say to me often, I would have never thought to do that. I would have never done that. And I would have never thought not to do that. I
Yeah.
think that makes me weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is one of the things that to me makes me weird too. I have a thing about problem solving. I tell people all the time. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna take this advantage of this. I can see a problem, and it can be a logistical thing or something, and I will have no idea how I'm going to solve it. But I have the utmost confidence I'll figure something out. That makes me weird because people are like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, no, I don't know what to do yet. I'll figure it out. I don't know how I'm going to get there yet, but I'll get there. It's the incubation part of problem solving that I just love. I love when that stuff just gets there and I eventually come to a solution. So yeah, and that makes me different. Yeah.
So, Chris, we are nearing the end of time here. Not the end of time like the end of days, but the end of our time together. So is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I would like to just say I deeply, deeply appreciate being able to have this conversation with you, Amanda, and being able to listen to some of the conversations you've had with other people, but also for you, for the courage and the fortitude to have these conversations with people and to be proud of the things that at some point in our life we may have been derided for. It helps me from a standpoint of mental health to be able to talk about these things, not with a sense of shame, but with a sense of pride. And you allowed me the space to do that. So I deeply indebted to you for giving me this opportunity because it just makes me feel a little bit better about myself.
Well, I'm going to have to just clip that and put it on loop and listen to that daily. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. This podcast experience has been so nurturing for my heart and my soul. And as a late diagnosed person, to feel weird and othered my entire life, and then to look and be like, wait a minute, all of the best people I know are just like me. Actually, I'm okay. And I'm so thankful for all of these folks, you, anyone else I've had on the podcast, and the countless other people that I have in my life that have validated and affirmed that no, being weird and caring for others and building genuine relationships and being curious and kind is actually not that weird at all. It's wonderful. That's a wrap on this episode of But Are You Weird? Thank you so much to Chris for letting us get to know you and showing us your weird and wonderful and genuinely authentic self. And thanks to you for tuning in and getting weird with us. As always, I am so glad you are here. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, leave a comment, or share it with your favorite curious mind. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and definitely stay weird.